Morning, guys and gals. Froggy here. Froggy got a new compressor, so I thought I'd put together a quick video on compressors and the tools you use with compressors and the size of the compressor and different information like that. So why do you need a compressor? Well, there's a few reasons. They can power tools to a more powerful level, I guess you would say, than some electric tools, than the average electric tools that you have. Probably the most powerful air tool that I have is this half-inch drive Ingersoll Rand air gun. It's an impact gun, which means it's got hammers inside that are powered by air, and when you pull the trigger it hammers and hammers and hammers and hammers, and it'll get a lug nut or a stuck nut off pretty easily. It'll put more torque to a fastener than what you can do by hand, unless you've got an awful long lever on your wrench. So it's half-inch drive impact gun. This is a 3/8 drive. It refers to the size of the sockets that go on it. This is not impact, so this will just twist and twist and twist. It'll go forwards and backwards, and then when your fastener gets tight, it'll wrap your knuckles up against some part of the car if you're not careful. So you got to be careful with the trigger on this and let it go real fast. This one is a favorite one. I don't use it that much because it's small, but I've got a lot of little fasteners to do or undo. This is called a butterfly, and this is an impact. It has adjustable torque on that. This one also has adjustable torque, I failed to mention, but this one is much less powerful, but it's also small and can get into tight spaces. It's got a little swivel on it. I like this little guy a lot. This is a cutoff tool. Cutoff tool, depending on the blade that you put or the disc that you put on there, will cut through a lot of metal. Certainly it cuts through plastic. Heck, it might even cut through wood. I'm not sure. I've never used it on wood. But that's a cutoff tool. And this is your good old gauge and for filling your tires. It's got a gauge on it, and it's got a bleeding valve on it. This is a very inexpensive one. The rubber's already cracking on it, so I'll be buying another one of those pretty quick. So those are the tools. The compressor that I got, most of them go up to 125 psi, but that's not the most important thing. Some of them will go up to 150 maybe. But what's the most important thing is the tank, how big the tank is. If you've got a little bitty tank with a very powerful motor, it's going to be running all the time because you've got no reserve air pressure in the tank. My first one that I got was probably like a 5 or 6 gallon. Then I had an 8 gallon before this. This is a 10 gallon. I would have even gotten bigger than this. However, I needed to fit it under this little table, and the bigger tanks are usually upright tanks, and they just take up more space than what I was willing to give up. So that's what I got. These will usually require a dedicated circuit, a 15 amp circuit, electrical circuit, to plug them into. If you've got too much stuff plugged into a circuit that has a compressor on it and the other items on the circuit are turned on, then you'll probably pop your circuit breaker, because this has got a big motor on it, a big electric motor and a pretty big compressor, so it draws a lot of amps when it's running. Now, what is it recommended for? Here's a nice chart that I got this one at Harbor Freight. It's got a chart that shows you what it's good for: inflating, light woodworking, heavy nailing, hobby spray painting. That means not don't want to paint a whole car with this, but you can do small spray painting jobs. Automotive repairing, that's what I use it for mainly. Metalworking, die grinder or a hammer. Not recommended for heavy auto restoring. That means if you've got a tool that runs continuously, like a sander if you're trying to sand a whole car, or a spray gun if you're trying to shoot paint on a whole car, or even a cutoff tool. Even this cutoff tool runs at 18,000 RPM continuously. So it uses a lot of air, a lot of volume of air. And I can empty my 8-gallon tank would only run this for about maybe 45 seconds before the motor would come on and start to replenish the air in the tank. Now with this 10-gallon tank, I might be able to run this a minute or maybe a minute and a half at the most, and then my motor's going to come on and try to build up my air pressure again. Well, that's okay. As long as I know that ahead of time, I can use this tool. But if I had a really, really big job, I probably would get frustrated and I want to get a bigger tank on my compressor. Now what do you need to do when you buy a compressor? Well, if it takes oil, you need to put oil in it. The oil goes in the back. There's a sight glass here. It's heavy, I'm not going to move it around, but there's a sight glass. It's just a little glass window. You look in to see the oil level. It's got a mark on there that tells you the oil goes in the top here. And don't ever run this without putting oil in it. You'll burn up this compressor. If it doesn't have oil splashing up there, it's going to seize up, and then you've got $150 door stop instead of an air compressor. So make sure you put oil in it. This one I had to put the wheels on, and that's about it. You're going to need to buy some hose. There's some hose there that I bought when I had my old compressor, and there's fittings that you buy for the different tools. Now the tools may or may not come with fittings. These have a quick release fitting. What you do is you pull this sleeve back, and the fitting will release, and there'll be a little bit of a loud noise when you do that. One nice thing, this has a regulator on the pressure, so I can, if I've got a full head of pressure, 125 psi here, but I have a small tool that only needs 20 or 30 psi, I can regulate that pressure down so I don't damage the tool or use the tool incorrectly. So let's plug in one of these tools and I'll show you how it works. Okay, here's my big boy, my half-inch drive impact gun. I've got it plugged in. I'm sure you've heard that before. What else do you need to know? You need to put oil in these tools. They have impellers or blades that spin around at a high speed inside, and they need to have oil to keep them lubricated and also for sealing purposes. So every day, every time I pick up one of these tools, I'll put 5 or 6 drops of oil right there, right in that air inlet, before I even start using the tool. Let me show you the cutoff tool. Okay, here's the cutoff tool. You always want to be wearing glasses when you use any of these tools. See, as soon as I trigger this thing off, the compressor started. So it uses a lot of air. You want to be safe. That'll cut your finger off if you're not using it correctly. And I'm not going to plug in all the rest of the tools, but I explained to you how they work. And what else can I tell you? Well, one last thing I want to tell you. On the bottom of this, let's see if I can show it to you. Yeah, right there is a drain valve. You want to drain it every day or heck, at least once a week when you're using your compressor, because the action of compressing the air causes moisture to accumulate. The moisture is, the air is sucked in. The compressor sucks the air in here, it compresses it, and when it compresses it, it forces moisture out, and the moisture goes in the tank. And you can drain that moisture out. If you leave it in there, you're going to have a bunch of water in the tank, which will do two things. It'll rust out the tank eventually. It's a pretty rugged tank. It'll take some years to rust out, but it will rust out the tank. And also, you're going to be pushing that moisture through the tools, and also if you're painting, for example, you're going to be mixing up that moisture with the air with the paint. You don't want that to happen. Actually, if you painted with this, you'd want to put a filter here, a moisture filter that would trap some of that moisture out, and you would want to make sure that the water in the tank is drained out all the time. So that's Froggy's new compressor. Look forward to using it on some of the videos that I'm going to shoot for you. You hear that? I've got a little bit of a leak on this connection here. When I move this, I move it a little bit. That just means that this sleeve here is worn out a little bit probably, or there's a rubber inside there. Here. There's a rubber that seals up against this little brass part right here, and I probably need to put a new one on there. But that's just a minor leak. It doesn't hurt anything. It leaks on this one. It didn't leak on that one, but they may have a little bit different fitting here. It might be this fitting, or it might be the rubber in here. Either way, just thought I'd explain that to you. Buy your compressor, buy big. If you think you're going to be using it much, don't do what I did. I started small and I got bigger, now I got this one. Put some oil in it. I like the kind that take oil. They have some that are called oil-less, but I don't think they're as powerful, and I think they wear out quicker. This should give you years of service, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If it's useful to you, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more from Froggy, subscribe to my channel. Froggy out. Have a great day.